Right. Good morning, evening, or afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. Before we start, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps this video out a ton. Today we're going to talk about the 2020-21 NBA season and when it could start. It looks to be right now that for the NBA to play a full 82 game season, it looks like they would have to start around Christmas Day. Uh, I kind of think that's when they're going to start to begin with. I think off the bat, depending on what happens with the Canadian-U.S. border. A poll that was done by CBC recently here in Canada said most Canadians want that to stay closed. And I think if you open it up, it's going to cause a lot of public pressure. I think that border is going to stay closed at least until Christmas. And even then, would you have to quarantine if you're coming from the States? All that fun jazz coming from a Raptors perspective, wouldn't be financially beneficial for them to play in Toronto. So they'll likely take a season and just play in the States just for a season. What I think will happen with the overall schedule, it will take a baseball-like model. You can do one of two things. I don't think there's going to be full capacity at all the stadiums. I think that's will be hard to do. I think you maybe do 25% capacity, and as the year goes on, move that up. So 25, then it'll go like 35, then to 50, and 75, and 100, and so on. You'd eventually get, hopefully by the playoffs, you get full capacity. That would be great. But what I think will happen to cut down on travel is to have everyone in the East play everyone in the East and everyone in the West play the West. Now, I understand that sucks, but like if there's going to be limited fans there, it doesn't matter as much. You can probably play the games anywhere. Now, if let's say you're a Milwaukee fan and the Bucks aren't playing in Milwaukee, they're playing somewhere else, you can't see them. That would be a bummer, but it's probably only for a year. Right? The Raptors play, say, in Buffalo or another city, or maybe they're a permanent road team. They do that. What I think will actually happen is, and to cut down on travel because you're starting later, is you would just play series. This is what baseball does. You would play 2 or 3 games in a city, then you would travel, and vice versa. So, for instance, and you wouldn't do it in the playoffs. The playoffs, you would do something totally different. You would probably just do your regular playoffs. So have Toronto, say, in Buffalo or another city on the East Coast, say New York. Probably not Madison Square Garden because of the rent. So you would do that. And it's to cut down on travel and rest because the games have been really good in Orlando, playing back to back, but you're not all that traveling, so games are a little better. You would just do sets. You would do what baseball does, do a 3 game set, maybe a 2 game set. So say Miami's playing Boston right now in the Eastern Conference Finals. Next year, if Miami were to play Boston, Boston would be in Miami for 3 games and then fly to somewhere else. Or Miami would be in Boston for 3 games and then fly to somewhere else. It would go like that. That will cut down on travel. You could do games back to back and have a couple of days off when you're flying. They cut down on travel because if you're crossing the border in the different states, especially if this virus is still there, that's going to be an issue. Now, I know, hypothetically, if you're on the West Coast and you're a huge fan of, say, the Celtics, never seeing them play sucks. As a Raptors fan, if I was in Toronto and I could never see LeBron play, that year I couldn't see LeBron or Kawhi play, I would be upset if I was a season ticket holder. Now they only come once a year, so it's not a super loss. Another option would be you could do 4 host cities. Have each division have a host city, or even host cities, and then you could play those divisions. And when you travel to another division, you'd make it in a way that teams with this, say, if you're in the Atlantic Division, say 2 or 3 teams will come in from the Southwest or the Southeast, and this play you guys in a row to get that division taken care of for that year before they fly, and then you move teams like that, almost like a clock. You just rotate teams around that way. You have every team play so many home games. You could do also a home arena for 4 or 5 teams, 4 teams, or you could do a host state. The best example I can think of for a host state would be a place like, say, let's say you put a state in California. Well, in California, you already have the Staples Center, you already have Oracle, and you already have the Gold Bond Center. You could have teams in there playing games. And if you wanted to do smaller arenas, you could put one in the college arena and so on. And then you just have rotate that. At the end of the day, you'd bring fans in. You wouldn't bring your home fans, but you'd find a way to bring fans in. and that way it won't cut down the travel to Canada. You could do that, or you could essentially you're not going to not play next year. There's a lot of it's the NBA. You're not going to play. And I think if you move it to Christmas, you also do one of two things. You have a baseball style formula where teams go and play a team for 3 games back to back over a short period, then they fly to somewhere else and play games back to back. Or you do a hub style, but instead of all the teams just being in Orlando for a full year, you do 4 host cities. Or even if you don't want to do host cities, you do host states. You would say take an LA, and you'd say, okay, these many teams are going to be playing at Staples Center, these many teams are going to be playing at Oracle, these many teams are going to be at the Gold Bond Center, and you divvy it up that way. I'm going to talk about the NHL here. Recently, when before the NHL went to Edmonton and Toronto as their host cities, BC was in the running, and it was saying, well, we don't have to have all our teams in Vancouver as a host city. We could have so many in Vancouver, so many in Victoria, so many in Nanaimo, so many in Abbotsford, and so on, because they all have rinks. And if fans aren't there, it doesn't really matter where you play the games. A rink's a rink's a rink's a rink. Right? But if you want to do a host city, best con, you could even do 2. Maybe do Orlando again and Vegas. Vegas, T1's right there. A bunch of smaller cities there as well, and you could do that. But let me know what you think. I really like the idea of limiting fans for the first little while and see how it goes. See if you can perhaps, as the year goes on, cases become lower and lower, put more fans, increase your capacity. So for the first 20 games, we'll say, up until during Christmas, you're starting in Christmas, so up until about February, you have 10%. Then February to March, you have 25%. And you slowly intake, and perhaps in the playoffs, you would have, say, 75 or 100%. Or the thing is, everyone would have to wear a mask and social distancing, so you can't. But hopefully by then, things will be a little bit back to normal. The only thing for this plan to work is I think the Raptors need to play a year in, say, Buffalo or a U.S. city. It doesn't have to be Buffalo. It's the Jays are playing in Buffalo right now. Or you could put them in Columbus, a team that Columbus you would, and Buffalo you would have to split games with the NHL. But I can't see that being an issue. If there aren't fans, you can just be in a college stadium, or even your local YMCA, as long as it has enough room for cameras. Anyway, make sure to hit like and subscribe on this video if you're just browsing your way through, and you all have a great Monday. Bye.